I apologize for making you wait, pension. Granny, what did you just say? Megan smirked as she stared me in the face after taking her sweet time to devour a sumptuous lunch. What? Did I not get through? As you age, your hearing may also deteriorate. Are you certain you can even afford a property like this on such a meager pension? The impoverished have no place at this upscale eatery. Megan talked with pride, swinging her high-end handbag around. My patience snapped. All right, let's cash out my $0.000 million account to resolve this. When I said that, Megan started laughing. She seemed thrilled to have a fresh joke to tell and obviously didn't believe me. I had a flashback to all the rude things Megan had done to me over the years. I could no longer allow her actions to continue unchallenged. My words weren't meaningless, and she was going to learn it the hard way. Julie Turner is my name. At the age of 67, I currently live off of my pension. Although I enjoy a relaxed lifestyle and do some work on the side, I'm not overly busy. The cold had grown stinging toward the end of the year. People in the northern states were already discussing snow. I went out to run some errands after applying my favorite lipstick. There was a lot of Christmas spirit throughout the town. It's likely the most anticipated event of the year for children and youth. I couldn't help but become a little thrilled, even at my age. I walked through the streets of celebration and inside the bank. Today's work was simply mundane, in contrast to the happy weather outdoors. I was here to switch the account that was being used to deposit my pension. You could get benefits for setting up your pension payments at the bank as part of a promotion. Since even minor benefits might be useful in daily life, I made the decision to drop by. I approached the counter when it was my turn. A distinguished-looking man stood behind the young female banker, seemingly watching over her. On her chest, the woman wore 2 name tags, Megan Carter and In Training. The man behind her was obviously her mentor. As soon as I sat down, Megan's thick makeup caught my attention. Her lips and eyes were styled as though she were going to a party. It's easy to go overboard when you're young, but she seemed particularly ostentatious. Nevertheless, I told myself that her work had nothing to do with her makeup. I'd like to set up this bank as my payment account. I sincerely appreciate it. Do you know about our promotion? Yes, that's exactly why I'm here. Megan started reviewing my ID and bank book before she spoke. The man behind her gave her a shoulder tap and said, "In Miss Tanner's case, my name is Julie Turner." Megan had just misinterpreted it. Her mentor saw her right away and corrected her. "How could you have mispronounced a customer's name like that? Hey, that's impolite." Express your regret to her right away. Megan, though, still made no move. "What's the matter?" Avoid making the consumer wait. Megan's words were strained when she finally spoke. Well, I'm not to blame. There was a slight fatigue in my eyes. I couldn't help but feel exasperated. Getting someone's name right is a basic part of doing business. Regardless of the reason, a sincere apology is necessary to avoid leaving a bad impression. "I'm very sorry, ma'am." The male supervisor pushed Megan aside and offered to handle the rest of the interaction himself. He seemed worried about upsetting me further. With Megan out of the way, the rest of the process went smoothly. As I finished my business and prepared to leave, Megan approached me. She was no longer at the counter and had moved to the floor area. In a low voice, she began speaking to me. "Thanks to you, I was humiliated. Just so you know, it was a simple mistake. When it comes to financial knowledge, I'm second to none. You seem confident. You must be very capable. A small mistake like that is no big deal. Just be more careful next time, okay?" At my words, Megan's perfectly shaped brows furrowed. She appeared to take it as sarcasm, although I had no such intention. Her reaction was fierce. "What's with that tone of yours? That man who stepped in for me earlier, that's my father, and he's the branch manager here. Normally, someone like you wouldn't even have the chance to talk to him." This caught me by surprise. I never expected that the polite and well-mannered branch manager would have a daughter with such an arrogant attitude. Judging by the fact that she was still in training, Megan must have started working recently and had little experience. Even taking her status as a newbie into account, her behavior was incredibly inappropriate. However, when I encounter people like this, I don't immediately get into confrontations. I see. You must be proud to have such an accomplished father. That's right. My family is on a completely different level from ordinary people like you. You're living off your pension and rushing to grab a promotion, right? It must be sad to not have money. We're wealthy, so I can't even imagine what that's like. And unlike you, I can manage transactions involving millions if I want to. Dealing with customers at the counter is such a drag. I understand. Well, good luck with your training. Megan furrowed her neatly groomed brows. It was almost as if she didn't realize how rude she had been. Mind your own business. I don't need a lecture from some old woman. Now, if you get it, hurry up and leave. I'm busy. Considering she had been the one to start the conversation, her claim to be busy seemed rather dubious. Perhaps she had been spoiled her whole life. My life experiences told me it would be wise to avoid getting too involved with someone like her. Even though being called an old woman upset me, I decided to let it go and leave quietly to avoid any trouble. But as they say, bad things come in waves. I would end up crossing paths with Megan again. The month after that unpleasant experience, I visited the bank to withdraw my pension. It was a busy day, with a long line of customers waiting in front of the ATMs. The counter seemed less crowded, so I decided to head there, only to find Megan handling the counter. This small-time stuff is such a waste of my talent. Last month, it was the promotion, and now it's pension withdrawals. A capable person like me shouldn't be stuck with this kind of work. Let's get this over with already. It seems she wasn't being supervised today, so Megan was speaking her mind without restraint. I handed over my ash and passbook as Megan muttered complaints under her breath. As I tried to check the fine details in my passbook, my vision became blurry, so I placed my glasses on the counter to take a closer look. Megan, eager to call the next customer, began tidying up the counter. In a rush to dust off the surface, she knocked my glasses onto the floor, scratching the lenses. Oh no. Even as I struggled to bend down and pick them up, Megan acted like nothing had happened. She simply said curtly, "It wasn't on purpose." Her actions didn't seem intentional, so I wasn't planning to blame her for it. But the fact remained that my glasses were damaged. I had hoped for a word of apology or some kind of concern, but my expectations were in vain. The lenses are scratched. What should I do? What do you mean, what should you do? Are you asking for compensation or something? Don't be so petty. Or are you saying you dropped them on purpose to blame me and get some money out of it? That's not what I'm saying, but I can't see clearly with these now. As I genuinely struggled to deal with the situation, Megan busied herself with exaggerated gestures, pretending to look stressed. Why are you taking so long? If you're done, leave the counter immediately. It's a nuisance to have you lingering here. A nuisance, you say? Still, the cold attitude really got to me. Even so, I couldn't help but keep inspecting the scratch on my glasses, holding them up to the light again and again. You're so bitter about it, aren't you? Well, I guess for someone living on a pension, fixing a pair of glasses isn't exactly easy. Maybe you'll just have to keep using your old scratched-up ones. Why not fix them with some tape or something? That'd be hilarious, looking all cheap and broke. Megan seemed to be enjoying herself, finding energy in making such cutting remarks. There was no point in staying here any longer. I'd only be subjected to more of her spiteful comments. Luckily, I could still manage to walk the familiar path home without my glasses as long as I paid close attention. It'd be fine. Still, Megan's attitude left a bad taste in my mouth. From now on, I've decided to use a different branch even if it takes a bit more effort. I made up my mind, stood up, and gave a perfunctory thank you before leaving the counter. I usually live a quiet life, but every now and then I indulge in a bit of luxury. On those days, I always find myself undecided about which shade of lipstick to wear. On one such day, toward the end of the year, on a Sunday, my daughter Michelle invited me out for lunch at an upscale restaurant. The place was renowned, and apparently there were long lines every week. We joined the back of the line. About 30 minutes passed, but knowing we'd get to dine at such a talked-about spot made the wait feel worthwhile. Michelle and I chatted, catching up on life. I had no idea there was a restaurant here. The main location is in the heart of the city, but this one just opened recently. I've always wanted to come here with you. Suddenly, the line moved forward significantly, and we advanced several feet. It looked like we might get seated sooner than expected. Apparently, a large group had just left, and the people in line were being guided in smoothly. We quickly found ourselves near the front of the queue. At this rate, we might get a table sooner than we thought. Let's hope so. It's freezing out here. She pointed out that the spot we were standing in was right by the entrance, where a cold draft came through each time someone walked by. It wasn't a place we wanted to linger for too long. It's fine. It's just lunch, so it'll probably take about an hour, right? I'm sure a table will open up soon. You're right. The course here is supposed to take about that long. Just a little more to go, I guess. But after that, the line barely moved. It was frustrating to see people eating right in front of you and still not have your turn come up. When we asked the server, they told us it would only be a little longer, but there was no sign of any tables opening up. The staff approached a woman at one of the tables and asked her to free up the seat. She was probably a customer who had arrived quite a while ago. Apparently, even though her meal was finished, she was lingering at the table. Despite being asked several times to give up the spot due to the crowd, she didn't seem to care. Finally, after several attempts, the server insisted again, and the woman raised her voice. I'm a customer. You have no right to talk to me like that. Or should I post a review saying this place kicks out its customers? That haughty tone sounded familiar. Sure enough, it was Megan, the woman who works at the bank. Across from her sat another woman who seemed to be about the same age. The two of them appeared to be having a wonderful time chatting. I leaned over and whispered to Michelle, I know her. She once handled my account at the bank, but I wouldn't say it was a pleasant experience. Maybe she's just young and doesn't have much experience. Maiden's behavior couldn't be brushed off with such mild words, but explaining this to Michelle was easier said than done. I don't think it's just that. Anyway, running into her on my day off is just plain bad luck. I then began to recount to Michelle what had happened the other day. That's awful. She might come from a good family, but her personality is terrible. Look at her now, bossing around the staff. Michelle was also upset. In front of us, Megan's loud, aggressive voice echoed through the restaurant. For those around, it felt like the mood for a pleasant lunch had been completely ruined. In the end, it took 2 hours from when we first got in line before we were finally seated. Waiting in the cold near the entrance had left our hands and feet completely frozen. Megan and her companion had just finished chatting, paid their bill, and were on their way out. We crossed paths with them in front of the register. At that moment, Megan spoke up. Oh, you're finally getting your lunch? Sorry to keep you waiting, pinching Granny. What did you just say? It seemed Megan remembered my face. Still, her words were an appalling insult. The idea of respecting others, especially customers, seemed entirely absent from Megan's mind. Michelle stood beside me with a horrified look on her face. Oh, you didn't hear me? Maybe your hearing's going too. At your age, are you sure you can afford a place like this on your meager pension? This place is way too upscale for poor folks. Megan swung her designer handbag around proudly as she spoke. I felt my patience snap. Oh, fine then. Let's settle this by closing my $100 million account. For a moment, Megan stood dumbfounded, her mouth hanging open. Her bright red lips twisted into a smirk, and then a loud laugh filled the room. What did you say? $100 million? That's completely delusional. Your account barely had a few thousand in it last time I checked. Even if you're joking, you could at least come up with something more believable. I just can't understand how poor people think. Well, if you can't understand, that's fine. But talking about a customer's account balance, that's completely unprofessional. Tomorrow's Monday, right? I'll be at the bank to close my account. Sure, come by any time. Oh, this is hilarious. I've got such a great story to share now. Megan immediately started talking about me to the woman she was with. It's inappropriate to joke about work experiences in such a flippant way. Michelle and I watched as Megan walked out of the restaurant, laughing and looking pleased with herself. The next day at noon, I noticed numerous missed calls on my phone while I was out and about, touching up my makeup. I had been busy with errands earlier in the day and hadn't checked my phone. All the missed calls were from the bank, and the branch manager had even left a voicemail. Surprised by the sheer number of calls, my phone began ringing again. Hello. Oh, Miss Turner. I'm so glad I could reach you. This is Tom Carter, the branch manager. I've heard something rather concerning. Tom sounded extremely flustered, speaking in a hurried and awkward tone, as if out of breath. To calm the situation, I decided to respond in a measured tone. Something concerning, you say? Well, I'm actually on my way to your bank now. Should I take a number when I arrive, or would you prefer we talk at the counter? Oh, absolutely not. We will, of course, have a private room prepared for you. I'll be waiting for you at the entrance, so please come straight in. Is that so? I appreciate it. I apologize for the inconvenience. I wasn't sure what the matter was, but it seemed to be something very important. Since I was planning to visit the bank anyway to close my account, taking the time to listen wouldn't be an issue. I immediately headed to the bank. Near the automatic doors of the bank, I saw Tom, the branch manager, standing there. I've been expecting you. This way, please. He led me to a small room next to the counter. When I entered the room, Megan was already there. She was sitting in a chair with her legs crossed. When she saw Tom, she quickly straightened up and stood. This is the employee who handled your account before, but she also happens to be my daughter. Yes, I'm aware. Oh. You knew? Tom looked surprised, but quickly regained his composure and continued. Anyway, last night, Megan told me about an encounter she had with you at a restaurant. You ran into each other, didn't you? Yes, that's right. I recalled Megan gleefully mentioning how she had a great story to share. It seemed she wasn't lying. She had indeed shared it with her father. Megan shot me a sly smile and started speaking. Thanks for the laugh. You, a poor pensioner, claiming to have $100 million. It was so funny. I couldn't help but tell my dad about it. He knows your face too, by the way. I bet your big lie really got under his skin. As Megan spoke, Tom's face turned pale. He slowly turned to her, his gaze sharp. So it's true then. You really spoke to our customer like that yesterday. Our customer. This person just lives off her pension, barely scraping by. There are far more important clients to deal with. Spending time on someone like this is just a waste. Tom held his head in his hands. Meanwhile, Megan seemed completely unaware of how terrible her words were. Brimming with confidence, Dad seemed a bit skeptical of my story earlier, but now it's clear, isn't it? Apologize for claiming you have $100 million, you liar. Pointing a finger at me, Megan spoke without hesitation. Beads of cold sweat formed on Tom's forehead. Well, Miss Turner, I deeply apologize for my daughter's rudeness. It's fine. Your daughter is quite fiery, isn't she? Either way, I had already made up my mind. I'll be closing my $100 million account. That's the last thing we want. I felt sorry for Tom as he pleaded with a troubled expression, but I was determined to stick to my decision. Meanwhile, Megan didn't seem to grasp the seriousness of the situation. Dad, why are you even saying that? This old lady's account barely has any money in it. Who cares if she closes it? If anything, cutting down on these pointless accounts would make operations more efficient. She puffed out her chest as if she had come up with a brilliant idea. Tom let out a deep sigh. You still don't get it, do you? Miss Turner here is an advisor for Turner Cosmetics. The company's deposits total $100 million. A few seconds of silence followed. It seemed Megan needed a moment to process what Tom had said. Then, a shrill voice echoed through the room. What? You mean you're the founder of Turner Cosmetics? Megan's jaw dropped, her mouth gaping wide enough to seem almost unhinged. Her heavily made-up face, complete with bright lipstick, twisted into a comical expression. That's right. I founded the company, though now I've stepped back and serve as an advisor. My daughter, Michelle, is the CEO. Oh, and by the way, the person who was with me when you came out of the restaurant, that was my daughter. You run the company as a family, so you're nowhere near poor. Megan, ever simplistic in her thinking, still seemed fixated only on my financial status. I usually spend my time at home and only occasionally offer advice to the company. This morning, I had a small meeting to attend. If it weren't for that, I would have been here first thing to close my account. This old woman is someone so important. Unbelievable. I mean, just look at her. She dresses plainly and lives on a pension. I'm not a fan of flaunting wealth. I especially dislike people who wave around designer goods like trophies, as you do. While I have income and assets, I prefer to leave them for my daughter and grandchildren. That's why I live as modestly as I can. Megan gritted her teeth, shaking her head repeatedly. She clearly couldn't comprehend my lifestyle. I've always felt something was off about your customer service. As a fellow business professional, I find your attitude intolerable. And more than that, I'm a customer. Why should I have to put up with such unpleasant experiences to do business here? There's a banker at another institution who's been providing excellent service and even reached out to me. I think it's time I move my assets there. Liar. I don't believe it. Someone like you, an advisor for that big company. Megan spat as she spoke, wiping her mouth. Her heavy makeup had smudged, with lipstick bleeding out in an unsightly way. Megan, enough. Learn your place. Your attitude is completely unacceptable. Fine. From now on, I'll be more careful with important people like this. That's not what I mean. It's unacceptable no matter who the person is. Discussing the customer's transactions or assets is strictly prohibited. And on top of that, you said incredibly offensive things. What were you thinking? As Tom reprimanded her harshly, I added my own words. Your Megan doesn't seem to understand basic decency. When she first got my name wrong, she refused to admit her mistake. The next time I dealt with her, she scratched my glasses and didn't even apologize. Anyone working in a professional role should know how to act appropriately in situations like these. It seems to me she's missing something fundamental. Tom stood up, got down on one knee, and deeply apologized. I'm utterly ashamed. I may have spoiled my daughter too much. I will sternly address this, so please, if you could find it in your heart to be lenient about this matter. I kept a stern expression and remained silent. After a pause, I spoke slowly. No, I will close my account. I've appreciated your help as the branch manager up until now, but I've decided to cut ties with your bank. A long silence followed. The quiet was finally broken by Megan. Come on, Dad, just forget it. She's just a stubborn old hag who won't listen no matter how much you apologize. We've got plenty of other good customers, don't we? Let's just move on and focus on them instead of wasting time on a complainer like this. What did you just say? Tom asked in a low voice, but it didn't seem to faze Megan. She didn't notice how tense Tom's expression had become. What? I'm just talking about being efficient. Sure, maybe I've made a few mistakes, but when it comes to finance, no one can beat me. With my skills, I can attract even better clients. Enough. Tom's voice boomed so loudly it echoed throughout the bank. I've had it with you. Your arrogance is beyond belief. Frankly, your so-called skills are nothing more than baseless delusions. To be honest, you wouldn't even be in your current position without my connections. That's not true. Other managers have said I'm talented. Tom crossed his arms and shook his head as if in disbelief. You've been favored because you're the branch manager's daughter. Though I do know you've made some effort along the way. That's why I hoped you'd grow into someone with genuine abilities. Fine. I'll dedicate myself to my work from now on. No. This time, it's unforgivable. You treat customers like they're nothing more than a source of money. I'm cutting ties with you as my daughter. Pack your things and leave the house. I want you out of my sight. It was a clear-cut declaration of disownment and effectively a termination of employment. For Megan, this meant losing both her support system and her job. Compared to her previous lifestyle, it would be a dramatic fall from grace. Even so, Tom seemed far from sad. I've always known you had a selfish streak. That's why I tried to teach you time and again, didn't I? Every time you did something inappropriate, I warned you and tried to correct you. But it seems all of that was pointless. If this continues, it will affect my work as well. As both a father and a boss, I can no longer take care of you. Wait, Dad. I am no longer your father. I never had a daughter to begin with. Now get out of here. That's so cruel. How can you say such a thing to your own daughter? I'm your precious family. I even got a job at the bank to follow in your footsteps. Megan began to cry, but Tom didn't waver. After a while, Megan seemed to realize that sulking wouldn't change anything. She slumped into a corner of the room, pouting. Her earlier tears now felt like shallow tricks. Ignoring Megan, I urged Tom to proceed with the account closure process. Once that was done, I left the room, seeing no reason to stay any longer. A week later, I had an important meeting and went to a prestigious salon with my daughter, Michelle, to meet a valued client. This salon was the most highly rated in the area and was known for attracting celebrities. As we observed the elegantly decorated interior, Michelle leaned over and whispered something to me. She's here. Following Michelle's gaze, I spotted Megan. I had already told her about the incidents at the restaurant and the bank the following day. It seemed Megan had left a lasting impression on her as well. Before long, Megan's piercing voice rang out. Don't you people understand the basics of customer service? I've been waiting forever. You could at least comp part of my bill, right? For every minute I've waited, knock $100 off. My time is worth that much. Even when the staff explained they couldn't offer a discount, Megan wouldn't back down. I could sense an aura of frustration radiating from Michelle as she watched the scene unfold. She seemed upset at the hypocrisy. After making so many people wait at the restaurant, Megan couldn't tolerate even a brief delay herself. Michelle strolled confidently toward Megan. Do you think you're some kind of princess? It's okay for you to make people wait, but you can't stand being kept waiting yourself. And then you demand compensation. That's incredibly entitled behavior. Megan turned sharply and glared at Michelle. And who do you think you are? I'm her daughter, Michelle said, gesturing toward me. At that moment, the color drained from Megan's face. I wished she would just leave, but instead, she approached me, almost clinging. Because of you, I've lost my home and my job. Please, it's not too late. Can you talk to my dad? If you say you've forgiven me and return the deposits, I think I can get my life back together. It seems you still don't understand that you're facing the consequences of your own actions. Now you're blaming me for your failures. By the way, how are you even affording a place like this after losing your job? It doesn't seem like you've adjusted your lifestyle. It seems she was frustrated by the fact that someone she once looked down on as poor was now questioning her lifestyle. Megan's cheeks were trembling slightly. Still, she was desperate enough to swallow her pride. Hey, meeting you here must be fate, right? Can't you just talk to Dad and calm him down? I'm afraid I can't help you. Besides, why don't you give up on getting your hair done here? Everyone in the salon is staring at you, and I doubt the stylist can concentrate. Megan glanced around the room. Sure enough, she was met with cold, disapproving looks from the staff and other customers. You seem to care a lot about your appearance, layering on all that makeup, but it's really not working for you. And as for your personality, it's a complete failure. You're far from a beautiful soul. That's cruel. What am I supposed to do? I've never been treated like this before. Crying isn't going to work on me. Maybe you should think about everything you've done up until now. Unless you truly reflect on your actions, I don't think you'll be getting another chance anytime soon. Megan, now crying at the entrance, was bordering on being a public nuisance. Even the stylist seemed to have had enough, repeatedly asking her to leave. Finally realizing she was completely isolated, Megan shot me a resentful glare before storming out. Not that I had any reason to be intimidated by someone like her. We returned to the salon, and both Michelle and I received heartfelt thanks from the staff. To this day, Tom, the branch manager, often visits my home. Half the time, he's trying to convince me to entrust my assets to his bank. The other half, he's apologizing for Megan's behavior. Tom occasionally updates me on Megan's current situation. Those updates make for perfect conversation material, and it almost always becomes the topic of discussion when I meet with Michelle. So, how is she doing? Megan. She was thrown out of her house with nothing but the clothes on her back and ended up joining a finance company. Really? Well, she always seemed confident about her financial knowledge, so that's good for her. Actually, she got hired immediately and landed a job with amazing benefits, or so she thought. The company she joined turned out to be a shady lender involved in illegal practices. Michelle exaggeratedly frowned. There wasn't a trace of sympathy in her expression. It seemed like poetic justice for all of Megan's past misdeeds. Eventually, Megan realized the company was crooked and tried to leave, but by then, she knew too much about their operations. Now, she's reportedly being pursued day and night by intimidating men. What a traumatic turn of events. I guess her arrogance and ignorance of the real world finally caught up with her. Exactly. Tom was right to cut ties. She clearly needed a serious wake-up call. For Megan, this must have been a nightmare. However, to us, it was nothing more than casual tea-time gossip. It was no different from a sensational story on a daytime talk show. After chatting about it for a while, Michelle and I moved on to other topics, and this story would eventually fade from memory. In the end, I formally declined Tom's request and transferred the company's assets to another bank. I also moved my pension account, severing all ties with his institution. These days, I live a quiet life, focusing on leaving as much of my wealth as possible to Michelle and my grandchildren. One of my simple pleasures is buying lipstick. I have a dedicated stand in front of the mirror at home, showcasing a collection of every shade imaginable. For me, makeup is a way to boost my spirits. Just one swipe of lipstick can transform my mood. Cosmetics quite literally add color to everyday life. I have never forgotten that sentiment throughout my career managing the company. I am satisfied with a career spent working with the things I love most.